constant pull and push between the two. And I guess, for you, especially working in school, you probably see a lot of this where really your duty is to provide the best for the students. So I guess in thinking about that, I want to ask you, how do you feel about, committees can sometimes get very deadlocked. What is your idea about how do you reach consensus? How do you reach compromise? Those sorts of issues.
Okay, well, compromise is very important, and it's something that's not happening very much in our nation these days. I've felt that very strongly for a while in the political situation, that we all need to be able to listen to each other respectfully, not just wait to speak, but be able to hear what other people are saying and see things from various sides. Regarding what's best for, you used the example of the students, but speaking of the community, that's a really complex question, because sometimes what people think is best for them is what they see right now, but it might not be best for them or for the future generations in the long run. And that's why I was impressed to learn that there is such a thing as a conservation commission, and that we need to pay attention to these areas that we can't, if we let them go, we can't get them back. And I just think that is important for all of our quality of life. I know there's great need for affordable housing. I know that, we need to take care of people, but there's not going to be anything if we don't take care of the wetlands and the areas that need to be protected. So I do feel pretty strongly about that. And it's a developing understanding, even about, the ecosystems that need to be supported for us all to be able to be supported. So again, that's why I'm looking at this commission, knowing that I have a lot to learn, but feeling very strongly that we need to protect our ecosystem.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Esselis.
So I have a couple more questions. So my understanding of the Conservation Commission, that they're governed by the state's Wetland Protection Act and local wetland protection ordinance and regulations. So do you have any understanding, knowledge of any of the acts and ordinances, regulations related to the Wetlands Protection Act?
Very little, only the things that I have been investigating since I even heard about this commission. Like I said, I am aware that there would be a steep learning curve. I know there's a training and orientation that is year-long, if I understand correctly, and I know that there would be a lot of learning. So I don't want to kid any of you that I am a specialist or qualified in terms of the science. I'm just a resident who cares about this and who is also trying to find the way that I can give back to this community that I've been in so long, in an area that I'm interested in. So that's where I'm coming from.
Madam Chair, a follow-up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The other thing I've learned about the commission, it has a very heavy workload, probably one of the heaviest of all of our commissions. Obviously, this is a volunteer role you would have. They meet at least 3 times a month. They have site visits. The site visits are highly recommended because, from what I've learned, looking at the plan and looking at the site, we'll have 2 different perspectives. Are you prepared to make that type of commitment if you were to be appointed to the Conservation Commission?
Yes, I am. I think that I am able to handle a lot of work effectively and quickly. That's just the type of person that I am.
Okay. And one last one, if I may, Madam Chair.
Please.
We see, obviously there's been a bit of a focus on one particular issue, one topic in this conversation with you, and that being Twin Brooks. But it's important to recognize that there's more than one issue impacting our community, and there'll be certainly others coming down the road. So I suppose it's important to obviously keep an open mind, but also just be aware that there are other issues, and being a one issue member, counselor, what have you, it can prove to make the role a little bit more challenging. So I would just hope that you'll also have a broader view of the different issues that are impacting our community instead of just, one that's been mentioned, one in which you brought up, this evening or this afternoon.
I'm feeling sort of bad that I even brought it up, but the reason that I did was simply because I felt like when I stumbled into that, I touched on this live wire, obviously even from the reactions here, but it just made me realize that in my town of Hyannis, there's just not a lot of focus on not just open space, but the beauty of the area. Hyannis is more seen as like the tourist destination, and I live here and there's some beautiful areas that I want to make sure are protected. So I really can't say that Twin Brooks is my main passion. And I'm sorry if I gave you that. I haven't been sent here from any Twin Brooks, whatever. I only went to 2 of their meetings. But I think the major things that caused me to just love the area of Cape Cod are being out there shell fishing, and also is the native pollinators in the gardens. That's something that I'm very interested in. I work with Resilient Roots, which is got the area of Fuller Farm, which is a Barnstable Land Trust, where they're working there to put in natural pollinating gardens, and I've been working on their board. And so those sort of things, it is definitely more than Twin Brooks. It's just a real interest in our environment and making sure that beautiful and important places are protected.
And Rachel, thank you for providing that additional detail of your interest, and that's very helpful. So thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Mendez?
Yeah, 2 things. First, Rachel, never apologize for bringing anything up. Because, when somebody brings something up, that gives you a segue to ask them questions. Whether you're for it or against it, or you haven't made up your mind, it doesn't matter. It's just a conduit to get to your mind, to get to your thinking. Also, are you aware of Aboriginal rights as far as fishing rights go, parking rights, so on and so forth?
No, I'm not.
Okay, that's something that I would suggest you study.
Okay.
There's been a problem through some of the towns with people not allowing Aboriginal rights. There's stuff like any waterway natives can go to. They can cut through any yard to get to the waterway. Mm-hmm. And that's caused some strife around the various towns, not just Barnstable. I don't think we've had really that problem, but I know it's been a problem in the past. So that's something you may want to, kind of polish up on, is the Aboriginal end of it also.
Thank you. I'll look into it.
All right.
Well, Rachel, thank you for asking all these questions, answering all these questions that the members of the committee have had. I currently serve as the liaison to the Conservation Commission, and I can't tell you how impressed I am with the dedication of the current members of that commission to the role that they have been appointed to. And as Councilor Atzlis has already asked and referenced, the workload and the level of knowledge that you have to sort of accrue is pretty tremendous. But it's also important to have fresh perspectives on any of our committees. So I really welcome that you have applied for this position, and that, and this is obviously something, if it continues to be a passion, we have a point. I mean, there's vacancies all the time. So, even depending on how this one works out, that doesn't mean that you might not in the future, if not now, be part of this effort. So do you have any questions of us before I kind of just wrap up with a little bit of the process?
No, just a comment that I'm glad to hear that other people have applied as well. And that I certainly would be happy to know that there's somebody who has greater qualifications that can serve in the committee. So I'm happy to hear that, and I trust in your decision.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. So our usual process, depending on, again, where we are with the number of candidates and vacancies, is to make recommendations sometimes after the meeting that we interview you, or in a subsequent meeting. And once we've made those recommendations, they are sent to the town council. And depending on our meeting schedule, there's usually 2 readings. So The process can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So you probably won't be hearing anything for a while. Although, Cindy, I don't know if you do any follow-up if there's a continuance of an item, if we do any communication. But if not, just consider this. If you don't hear from us right away, it's not because your nomination isn't under consideration. So.
Very good. Who would I expect to hear from? From Cynthia? Cynthia
is our communicator.
Okay. Very good.
All right. Well, there's nothing else, any other commit. Okay, we're good. So thank you again for joining us today.
Take care. Bye.
Madam Chair, we did have, while you're doing your interview, Louise Foster from the Concom join as well. I don't know if she wants to come in for public comments, so I'm going to admit her.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Louise. This is Cindy. If you would like to make some public comment, feel free to do so now. You can unmute, or if you're here just to watch, that's fine as well. I do have your next applicant, Mr. Teague, available.
Okay. Well, Louise, if you're there, hello. We'll refer back to you if you'd like to make any comment. And yes, if you would bring Mr. Teague up.
Mr. Teague, you can unmute.
Thank you.
Great. Welcome, Mr. Teague. I'm Paula Schnepp, the current chair of the Appointments Committee. And I know that you have submitted an interest in the vacancy for the Planning Board.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify at the start of this meeting that this is a vacancy that was created by a recent resignation of a member of the Planning Board, which you may be aware of. And we have just started the process of interviewing candidates so that we may or may not be making any decisions at today's meeting. We also have 3 members of the Planning Board that are up for reappointment at the end of our fiscal year in June.
Okay.
So we consider those as vacancies as well. So just want you to know the context of our process.
Very good.
All right. So I will open this interview up to my fellow counselors. Does anybody want to start with a question? Mr. Councilor Asselis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, thank you for being here. So I'll just ask a similar question I asked to earlier candidate. As far as your background's concerned and experience, what do you bring to the table? Why do you think you're a good fit for the Planning Board based on your background, experience, and knowledge?
Sure. I was lived most of my life in the Cape, born in Yarmouth. I've put 5 kids in the Barnstable school systems. Served as an officer in the Army, graduated United States military at West Point with a civil engineering degree. I'm a business owner in the town of Dennis, and lived and worked in the Cape after my Army and college careers since 2002. I served on the Planning Board from 2008 to 2014. I served 3 consecutive terms as chairman of the board. I have my business background is that I own Reef Realty and Reef Builders in Dennis. So I work both in the real estate and construction, zoning, permitting side of the business. Spent a lot of time, my early career working on affordable housing development, and been a big proponent for, progressive smart growth planning. I introduced the ADU concept in 2008. I was laughed out of the town. Laughed out of by the town manager because there was going to be a fear that we would lose subsidies for subsidized housing, and we rolled the clock forward 15 years, And here we are still with a housing crisis. Accessory dwelling units are grossly more expensive than they were 10 years ago to build. And the regulatory environment has only seemed to push, made certain things more difficult, environmental concerns, obviously energy consumption. And it's time for, some progressive action in terms of, zoning and flexibility that will allow us to continue to have this town have a place for everybody. People who work, people who are retired here, seasonal people, but really that year-round population is what drives, creates this community, and we're losing portions of that because it's not going to be here, right? A lot of people are getting pushed out of town. 2 of my employees in the last month have moved to Plymouth. I have a vested interest in seeing the Cape continue to grow and continue to respond to the needs of the people.
Thank you. I'll circle back.
Councilor Mendez?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for coming in today. Even though you went to DY, I won't hold that against you.
Always a Dolphin.
Don't say that. What's your idea of consensus? Are you agreeable to compromise? Because what I found through town, since I've been on here for a little bit, well, almost 2 years now, is that a lot of the town boards, a lot of the town agencies don't know what compromise is.
Sure.
And I believe it's important for all of us to compromise, not principles, but policy.
Sure.
So what's your idea of compromise?
So, every good idea has a left side to right side, right? A black and a white side, right? People believe in their convictions. They have a strong feeling about a given issue. Compromise is listening to those ideas, trying to integrate concepts that make sense for the community, right? Not from an individual perspective, but for the community. And then trying to craft a result that is where everybody gets a little bit of what they want, and very oftentimes nobody, a lot of people don't get everything that they want. And I think from a societal perspective today, everybody expects to get everything they want because they have an issue, they made a complaint, they created a stir about what may be a very important issue to them personally. But I think that what's really important in this process, and having been on the other side of the dais and these sorts of things, is that you get perspective from everyone that you can, right? Sometimes the loudest voice is not the correct voice, it's just loud. So to bring in alternative perspectives is really important, and to listen to those and give people time to express those. That's how good policy is made.
I'm all set.
Okay, great. Councilor Shaughnessy?
I don't have a question so much for you, Matt, but I just wanted to acknowledge that as I'm looking at the current members of the appointment committee, I believe I'm the only member of the appointments committee that had previously interviewed Mr. Schulte and Mr. Crow, Mr. Teague, along with Mr. Macenas to be on the planning board. Was that last year now or 2 years ago? So I have had the opportunity to interview Mr. Teague before, and I realize, I believe if I'm not mistaken, you do have an engineering degree.
I do. Yep.
So you are able to read and understand plans and maybe ask some of the questions that other people wouldn't necessarily ask.
Yeah, what we see in front of the planning board oftentimes is very complex, right? And there are little tiny nuances of these things that are very easily glossed over by a design professional. And if a member of the planning board is a layman for lack of a better term, the inability to understand what they're looking at is dangerous, right? The other thing is that I've read every zoning bylaw of every town on Cape Cod, and I'm on the receiving end of good and bad policy from zoning bylaws. So what I bring to the table is a perspective of, geez, what are they doing in Dennis? What are they doing in Bourne? What are they doing in Falmouth? I live it every day. I also serve on the state government affairs committee for the Home Builders Association. So I'm involved in terms of, code promulgation, development opportunities that are coming down to the state through Chapter 40R. These are real things that people need to not be aware of in name, but the intricacies and details of what's involved in those. And I've spent the last 25 years of my life reading zoning bylaws. Pretty good at it.
And I also wanted to thank, since all three of you gentlemen are here today, I wanted to thank you because I think, really what came forward at that moment was a rather unorganized process where I know we'd interviewed Mr. Schulte and Mr. Crow. Then it came up that you had previously applied, and obviously we always say we'll consider your application for 3 years, and you didn't get considered. So it got really messy. And the truth is, and we also had reappointments coming in, and I apparently, prior to my time on the appointments committee, the sense I got is that reappointments were pretty much rubber stamped. So if you had already been serving on a committee and you were up for reappointment, we almost weren't treating it like a vacancy. So
Sure.
I'm, for one, happy to see that, this year with a current vacancy as well as reappointments coming up, that we are, one, allotting time to make sure we consider all interests, because I think, not just our town council, but our boards and committees, they're only as strong as the residents who come forward to put themselves out there onto those front lines. And to me, that's the most important thing, right? That you're willing to put yourself out there, you're willing to serve, you're willing to gain the knowledge you need to have, and that, like the rest of us, we love our community. So I just wanted, I know your background, but I wanted the rest of the committee to hear a little bit about your background. And I'm glad that Mr. Schulte and Mr. Crow are, here in this process. And I hope that they're pleased to see that we're trying to iron out some of those kinks, because, it was very awkward. And I want to be fair, and I want to have the best committees that we can have for the town. Originally I voted for Mr. Schulte because, frankly, Mr. Schulte is a highly educated, intelligent man. He provides us with thoughtful comments that quite often they're not just comments, but he's actually done some analysis and actually proposes some potential workarounds to us, solutions. But I do appreciate that he does more than just complain, right? There's a complaint with some thoughtful analysis of what a better process might be. And so I'm always appreciative of that, and thank all of you for, just paying attention to issues and being interested. So Matt, thank you for throwing your hat back in the ring yet again, and for being here.
Thank you.
Councilor Starr.
1 second. Oh, thank you. I would ask Matt, how does he see Barnstable growing in the future? When we have the sewers expanding.
So that's a good question, Councilor Starr. So the underlying elephant in the room here is wastewater, right? That's a math problem and a chemistry problem. It happens to be an expensive one. But that is the single limiting factor, not only here. I recently met with the South Shore Chamber of Commerce there, Peter Foreman. We had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. Their issue is much more land that they have. They have the same problem. It's infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. So any planning beyond, that zoning concept and creating more opportunities, I'll say, right, in terms of housing, in terms of business, all those sorts of things are fundamentally based on addressing the wastewater and infrastructure issue, and they have to grow together, right? There's been a big influx of population down here, obviously, since the COVID pandemic. Obviously, a big buzz in terms of the changes to Title V and the current mandate, where many areas have a gun to their head in terms of, denitrifying septic upgrades, that sort of thing. not a great way to achieve an end state through threats and intimidation, right? I think any change to zoning, any divergence of land use from what we currently have today, has to be coupled with a team approach, right? In terms of the wastewater management, in terms of environmental concern, other natural resources that we have. Barnstable has to grow with that. Fortunately, they've led the way in that with, beginning the sewering process years and years ago. But it has to be a constant expansion because the nitrogen issue isn't going away. And even adding the units, the current expansion, yes, it will reduce it, but there's thousands of other units in this town that need some help and another way to address the nitrogen issue, so we can grow, so we can keep people here, so we can attract business, so my children can come back here and live. That's my ultimate goal, and the way to grow is a comprehensive approach. I know they're doing the local comprehensive plan study right now. I've been following that, but it has to be a across the board approach in terms of infrastructure coupled with opportunities to create, smart zoning and that sort of thing, and save Main Street, right? Like how do you keep these businesses here and people working and that sort of thing? It's a bigger problem for us. It's a bigger problem for me today than it was a year ago, and I didn't think that would be the case, but. We have to attract people. We have to put a strong base under this economy, and that happens with smart opportunities in zoning, and that has to be coupled with smart opportunities in infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the councilors? Councilor Etzlis?
Thank you. Matt, how do you respond to the comment or thought that, given your background, your professional background in real estate and building and developing, that somehow it, could be a conflict of interest being on this board, that somehow it may benefit you based on decisions that are made?
I don't have a response to that. If there's an issue where I feel that I need to recuse myself from a matter, then I'm fully aware of the Secretary of State's guidelines on ethics, and will do so. Other than that, I think that number one is I have yet to benefit from a direct piece of zoning that I ever participated in or voted on. Okay, and people can check the record and look at that, right? But what I do offer is the fact that my experience, my entire career has been in this industry, and that net benefit is very strong. As a matter of fact, we've been invited tomorrow night to go talk to the Brewster Planning Board about some zoning adoptions they're going to do, and we're not there to line our own pockets. We're there to make commentary on sensible regulations that may or may not have the desired impact in the town. So, any member of this town, any citizen any taxpayer who lives here, who serves on this board, could benefit or not benefit from decisions they're making in terms of zoning, right? So it's not just me in this industry, right? It's any member of the town. So if the inference is that I'm a risk or a detriment because of my career, I don't think that's the case. Like I said, I invite you to check the record and find any matter of zoning that I had on the 8 years I was on the planning board to which I directly benefited. The answer is none.
Follow up?
Yeah, different question. Matt, are you familiar with the regulatory agreements, chapter 168?
Say that again.
Are you familiar with regulatory agreements, chapter 168?
No. Oh, regulatory agreements? Yes, I've been involved in those. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's more of a technical question.
We've done
that's something important that
yeah, a couple of them got shut down. I was involved with them. I won't mention the hotel owner who was involved in it, but we didn't get to that point. Let's put it that way.
All right. Thank you. I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Great.
Yep.
Any other questions? Matt, thank you for coming in. And I kind of wanted to just ask, that 6-year period that you were able to serve on the planning board, do you have any highlights or lowlights that you would want to share with us that might also influence how you think you would proceed with a new term?
Yeah, I number one, I think that my efforts there, my impact there was in a lot of cases technical, right? I was able to clarify other issues for other board members and or bring up issues on a given matter that were specifically, I'll use the term, hidden in the plans or the documentation, right? Mm-hmm. That was very effective. The other part is there are numerous administrative duties that the planning board engages in, A&R plans, for one off the top of my head. And there is, part of the reason we are at the planning board is to conduct the town's business. So those matters should be done in an efficient and effective manner. And having somebody experienced in that is really important, right? You don't allow people to have an open debate about an A&R plan because you're not supposed to, right? So knowing the regulation and the capabilities or the requirements of each one is very important, right? You want a robust public comment component to, new zoning matters, right? You don't need people to talk about A&R plans that aren't even supposed to be discussed in front of the board, right? So there's a component of efficiency that is really important because, people are there to do business, right?
Right. So I know Councilor Atzlis brought up regulatory agreements, Chapter 168. What is your general feeling about the town's regulatory agreement process? I know that it can sometimes open up to a lot of waivers being requested from existing zoning. So it does provide some flexibility in areas that we might not have had a chance to really dive in and look at our zoning ordinance. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, it sometimes there's a perception that it's sort of the Wild West. So do you have any comments or feedback on your?
I don't think it's the Wild West. I think it, at the time I was there, it was specifically limited to the growth incentive zone in Hyannis. It's a great opportunity for the town to be able to, like you said, get something that otherwise would not be specifically allowed under zoning, or to avoid a major zoning change effort that really applies to one particular project, right? What I don't like about it is that it is a burden on the town, right? Creates specific additional oversight components, right? Annual reports. Somebody has to. I remember Art Trazik used to be there, and he was like the guru. I mean, he knew everything about everything with those things. But it was, schedules of inspections. It's all this additional oversight because it's not directly tied under the zoning bylaw. It's not, it's not directly administered through the building department, through the regulatory guys. So it does create an additional burden to the town because you're allowing that flexibility, and it requires additional oversight. Personally, I am not a believer in variances, right? Variances have a very specific test under state law. Regulatory agreements are a flexible tool, but they can be abused, right? Just because you want to put a Ferris wheel, on an old car dealership does not mean it's a good idea. And the fact that people throw a ton of money at it and give you the puppy dog eyes still doesn't mean it's a good idea. They just decided to put the application together, right? So there's definitely a component where it just doesn't work, right? It doesn't work, You've got to take each case on its face value, but I'm not a big fan of them under the fact that there's so much documentation, there's so much nuance to them. They're rife for abuse if the developer is not somebody with high integrity.
Thank you for that input. Any other questions from members of the committee? Good. All right. As I mentioned when we started this process, we do have other candidates that have expressed interest. So this probably will be a multiple meeting before we make a decision. But we also have 3 positions that are up for reappointment as well. So do you have any questions of us before you?
Thank you. I appreciate the time you guys put in as counselors.
Okay.
It is a tough job, and the reason I haven't run for the town council, quite frankly. So,
all right. Well, thank you, Matt, for coming in.
We'll see you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Right.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. All right. Bye-bye.
Madam Chair, next up is Angela.
Angela, all right.
And real quick,
Yes.
Madam Chair, so Bob Powers is not going to be here tonight, right?
Bob Powers is, yes, not going to be
Okay.
here and may be withdrawing his application. So we'll confirm
Okay.
that.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. You can unmute. Yes, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Welcome, Angela. I'm Paula Schnepp, the current chair of the Appointments Committee. And you actually have expressed interest in 2 different committees, both of which don't have current vacancies, but will have vacancies when we get to the reappointment process at the end of our fiscal year in June.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to be interviewed for both the Conservation Commission and the Sandy Neck Board today?
Sure.
Okay, all right. You don't have to express a preference, but is one hold your heart stronger than another?
No, I live right near Sandy Neck, so I've been interested in that in a longer
Okay.
period of time, but now I'm willing to open up to be open to some other things.
Okay, so we'll direct most of our questions to the first commission, which is the Conservation Commission. So any counselors want to begin the interview process? Counselor Mendez?
Hi, Angela. How are you?
Good.
That's good. What is your idea of compromise and the best way to achieve it?
Compromise? 2 sides can come together to agree on something so we can move forward.
Are you amenable to compromise?
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask a question about the Sandy Neck?
Sure.
I'm sure.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
What do you think is the biggest problem with Sandy Neck, and what do you think is the biggest attribute of Sandy Neck?
Well, that's a tough one. Attribute, I'll go first. The fact that it's a beautiful, pristine estuary. It's just something that needs to be protected. That one to me is kind of almost goes without saying. Problem is to get the people to enjoy it and how we can maintain what's best for, the animal, the things that live there that aren't humans. So how do we allow humans to get in there, to see what's there, to also enjoy it, and to find that balance? So I'd say those 2 things go together. So that's part of but the issue is what I see. If I had to answer that right quickly off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Atslas.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight, Angela. So as it relates to the Conservation Commission, I'll try to stay consistent with questions I've asked earlier with another candidate. What in your background, both personally and professionally, if at all, makes you a good fit and good fit for the commission?
I assume that you guys know I'm a retired science teacher. I spent my life, and I have all certifications, both from the biological sciences to chemistry to physics. So I just think it's important, and I want to be able to kind of give back to my local area now that I'm not teaching and I'm retired. And I'm sorry, what was the question again?
It was just more related to your background, whether it be, personally, professionally. You already mentioned your education, which is great. It's, that your background that would be a valuable contributor to the Conservation Commission.
I just think being a teacher itself lends itself to all the things that are needed on committees. I worked on many committee works for schools. I've been advisors for many of the years. I coached sports for kids through the years, had to have parent meetings and, deal with different administrators. So I think all the things that I did during my career fit on any committee, truthfully, but I'd like to be able to give back to the town now that I live in and do something on a smaller scale and out of education.
Thank you.
Councilor Starr?
Good afternoon, Angela. I'm wondering if have you seen the plans for the redevelopment of the Sandy Neck parking lot?
I have. I've been following it closely. I actually live really close to it.
Okay, sounds like a good improvement, and I give you credit for teaching middle school for so long. I taught 3rd and 4th grade. I couldn't have taught 7th and 8th grade is combat pay, as they say. So I don't really have a question. That's it. Thank you.
Councilor Shaughnessy?
I just wanted to let you know that I think it's a great background to be on a committee or a commission. You know, one, you have a background, a science background, and a knowledge of how living systems work together. But I think, you know, I think about when I did Barnstable Citizens Leadership Academy, and one of the most effective things about that class is it was led by a couple of teachers. And, you know, being a scientist and being a teacher are two very different things. I have a bachelor's degree in biology, so I know that, you know, some of my professors were incredibly knowledgeable and great teachers. Other professors were incredibly knowledgeable, not the best teachers. So, but I think one of the things that you sort of touched on as a teacher is you're meeting with administration, your day-to-day work is with children, but you also have to interfacing with parents. And I don't know what it is about that relationship, but, you know, I'm obviously speaking of Susan Sheehan and Meg Laron, who ran that program. I think by class number 3, I looked at her and said, did you used to be a teacher? And it was, you know, this was a class of adults, but she still had that ability to wrangle us in a way that we didn't realize we were being wrangled. And frankly, I kind of see that as a boon to being on a committee, because I think you have to adopt or adapt as a teacher to dealing with different parents from different backgrounds and, you know, different priorities in the administration of the school. So you know, we're lucky to get a lot of retirees to Barnstable who bring a lot of great experience with them. And so thank you very much for your interest in both committees. I personally feel that with your background, you might have an easier learning curve going into the Conservation Commission, maybe more so than Sandy Neck. But we always, you know, we always want to respect people's first choice. And I know your application checks both. Your updated resume states Conservation Commission. So again, your preference is for...
To be honest with you, my preference was, I'm not one of those people that wants to just read the community pages, the town community pages, where people have a lot of opinions and complain. I tend to be more of the doer. So I thought this would be the avenue to go into, to be on a committee where actually things either can get done or I can hear really what goes into long-term planning. So it's not so much that I had a preference for one, it's just because I was so close to Sandy Neck and it seemed to fit my background. I'd always thought that'd be something fun to do in the future. And look, the future's here. So in the last year, I started just listening in on different meetings ever since we had the pandemic. It's now easier to hear what's going on, to get the feel for the committees. So the conservation one kind of aligned closer to kind of what I was thinking. And, you know, I'm not really interested in how much to charge people for their summer parking tickets or their, you know, the dump pass. I'm not saying that isn't important. I'm just saying if I have to pick priorities, it's about having clean water and what are we going to do with that and all the solar that's coming into the area and the wind stuff. But the Conservation Commission, I thought, aligned closer to why I liked the Sandy Neck one to begin with. So that's kind of why I just put it down that way.
I think that's a great answer, because my sort of sense was obviously Conservation Commission is a heavier workload. And like you said, I'm a doer. I want to be involved. You know, tends to have quite a few site visits. field trips, should we say. So I think it'd be a great fit for you, especially if you're a doer and if you like to get your hands in there and really, Conservation Commission also, the town pays for a certification, which can sometimes take a few years to get. So I in thinking of workload, availability, that kind of thing, it seems to me as well that would be a great fit for you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Atlas?
Just to take one step further, Angela. So the conservation, has a heavy workload, as Councilor Shaughnessy alluded to. They meet at least 3 times a month, plus site visits. Site visits, they're highly recommended. They're looking at the plan and looking at the site. We'll have 2 different perspectives. Are you ready to make that type of commitment to serve on the commission? Because it is probably a heavier workload than some of the other commissions that we have here in town.
I think I am. And the other thing I should add is I recently I'm very interested in beekeeping and the beekeepers in the area, and I belong to the Beekeepers Association. I am not getting bees currently, but I'm interested in how we are also doing those kind of things in the area. And I know the Conservation Commission talks a lot about what they'd like to plant rather than having, the hardscape and all that kind of thing. So I'm actually interested in the kind of native plants and things that we can put in around here. So that's kind of why I lent myself to that. I'm not afraid of the workload or the commitment to it now that I'm fully retired. I think I have time to put in for that, but I think it was more of where I wanted to see that going.
Okay. And then just one last follow-up.
Sure.
And this is somewhat along the lines of what Councilor Mendes asked about compromise, but one of the things that we've seen on the Conservation Commission is being open-minded to every application that comes in front of the commission. So one of the questions that we have to ask is, are you open-minded in serving on the commission?
I think I am. I think it's important to look at all the sides to everything. I don't come with a lot of opinions, truthfully, on any of these committees. I only have my experience from it. I know it's important, the financial end of a lot of things for making people who live here, especially people who have second homes over those of us who live here as our first home, is the thing that seems to be the biggest compromise. No matter what committee I go on, that seems to always come up. So I guess that would be my answer. I am very open-minded to it, and I understand sometimes that's the biggest thing that seems to be where we have to make everybody happy.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate your time. And thank you for highlighting that you're a doer instead of spending time on some of those other places that people like to spend their time on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Angela, I'm going to guess that you're also a lifelong learner.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And
so I'm not afraid of homework. I'm not afraid of, the challenge of it.
As liaison to the Conservation Commission, I can't echo enough the amount of work and dedication that the current commissioners bring to their roles, and the opportunity to learn has no boundaries, because they're dealing with shellfish, they're dealing with plantings, and all the different regulations. Again, the Conservation Commission is the local body implementing state regulations, and but there's also sometimes local regulations that get put in place. So it's a job that I think will give great satisfaction, but it is a job. I would have to say sometimes I think the Conservation Commissioners work harder than the town councilors, but I won't say that too loudly. Are there any other questions from the committee? Councilor Mendes.
Just one more, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of Aboriginal fishing rights and what you're feeling on that?
I'm not. That's an area I'm inexperienced in.
I would suggest that you study up on that.
Okay.
It's a sticking point for some people, especially people who don't understand it.
Okay.
So something that you probably should make yourself familiar with. All right. Oh, and by the way, kudos for the Special Olympics thing. I know how hard that is. And, kudos for that. I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
It's very rewarding, though.
Yeah. I'm sure it is.
Okay, great. Angela, do you have any questions of us?
I'm sure I'm going to have a lot, but the only one recently that came to mind before zooming in tonight was, I don't understand how when people apply for something that I hear on like that, let's say the Conservation Commission, how is it determined where they go with their stuff first? Like, how do you know that, how would somebody, let's say I want to put up just a fence and I live right on 6A and I want to put up a fence. Do I go to zoning first? Like, how is it determined the stuff gets slotted to places?
I think most people go to the building department and then find out what regulations or what permitting things that they have to comply with. So if you happen to live, 50 feet or 100 feet from a wetland area, you're going to have to, make some provisions in that. Truthfully, there's a lot of folks in our town who end up having to have an enforcement order because they didn't know. They didn't know that they were, living in an area. And I think that the commission tries to balance, the needs of, the larger community and protecting our environment with sometimes the financial hardships that come about when you find out after the fact that you've, put some hardscape in a buffer zone, So we, and the commission has talked in some of their meetings about, trying to make sure that people know, especially on a transfer of a real estate property, what are their rights? You would hope that anybody who's involved in real estate might be communicating that to potential buyers, but some of that information gets conveyed and some of it maybe not so much. So
that's, I guess, what I was asking, because when I see the agenda for the Conservation Commission, I try to figure out how did these things get here. So a lot of times these were infringements, these were things that people didn't do correctly, and then the agenda is set by what gets sent to the commission, or people apply. That's where I wasn't sure.
Oh, well, we're kind of, I don't want to get too much in the weeds because I'm not an expert on how the Conservation Commission puts their agenda together. But oftentimes for larger landscaping or building projects, you're working with a team that knows our rules and knows the rules and makes applications through our conservation department, which is in our planning and development department. So usually people are guided. The enforcement issues are sometimes when someone may not have gone through that pathway. So
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions of us? Okay, as I mentioned, this process will be taking quite a bit of time because this is for 2 positions that are not actually technically open until the end of June. So we will keep in touch, and thank you so much for coming out this afternoon.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay. All right. Take care.
You too. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Great. Cindy, who do we have up next?
I'm moving Daniel Gomes over.
Okay.
I'll see if I can get Daniel over. In the meantime, let me try Sophie, who is the other
Youth Commission? Okay, that'd be great. Oh, hi. Good afternoon, Sophie.
Hi.
I'm Paula Schnepp, the current chair of the Appointments Committee, and we're here to interview you for a vacancy on the Barnstable Youth Commission. So welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right. So I'm going to open up to committee members to start the interview process. Anybody want to jump in? Trace, Councilor Shaughnessy.
Thank you very much. Hi, Sophie. How are you? I was wondering if
I'm good. How are you?
Well, thanks. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what school you're in, what year you're in, and why and how you heard about the Barnstable Youth Commission and why you want to serve.
Well, I'm Sophie, and I'm a sophomore at Sturgis East. I heard about the committee when I reached out to my counselor, and we kind of were discussing ways as to how I could become more involved in my community. And then he introduced me to the whole commission. And then from there, I got into contact with Izzy Rudy, and then she's been kind of helping me navigate through the whole process. But the reason why I was interested in getting involved with my community is because I really the commission itself, I value the impact that it has on the youth and the positive influence that it creates through hosting all these annual events. And I think that educating the youth about such relevant issues is very beneficial, and it creates such a good influence on them, which I think is really meaningful. And I would love to be a part of something so meaningful. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. That Izzy is a promoter. We love her for it. But thank you very much for your.
Councilor Eslis.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for being here tonight. You mentioned some things that the committee gets involved with that's of interest to you. Any particular issues, topics, subjects that are happening, within your school, within other schools, or just within the Barnstable community that kind of you said yourself, I really want to get involved more because of this or that?
I think the One Love workshops are really cool. And I think it's really important to teach and educate people about the difference between a healthy and unhealthy relationship. And I think that in general, also the youth, I think it's called the Youth Summit, which talks about drug abuse. I think that's also a very important issue. And I think that mental health issues should also be prioritized, because I think that they are a real issue within our community, especially in younger people. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're muted, Paula.
Councilor Mendez, sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Sophie. How are you? The question I have for you is, what is the biggest complaint that you hear from the youth around town?
I'm trying to think. I hear from a lot of students that mental health isn't really prioritized within the school system. It's more about getting work done, and I guess there's not a lot of consideration regarding a student's mental state. It's more about grades and numbers and more of that kind of stuff. That's what I hear a lot from my friends and other people.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Starr, anything else?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Well, Sophie, thank you. You're at Sturgis East, and I believe Izzy is graduating this year, right? So you would be able to step in and represent Sturgis on the Youth Commission, which is great. We love having a balance of our students coming from the different schools that serve Barnstable. So that's wonderful. Do you feel you have that perspective that you can bring, and you're also in the urban campus in Hyannis? Good. You're muted. So.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, I see that Daniel's has joined us, and so I'm going to actually say this to both of you, so I don't have to say it afterwards. But we're interviewing for 2 vacancies that are through June of 2024. So that would, take you to the end of this year and then the end of next year. So that would be both of interest to you. And our process, because these are 2 vacancies and 2 candidates, is that the committee will probably make a recommendation at the end of this meeting, but then it has to go to the town council. And then it has 2 readings at the town council. So it won't be till sometime in May where the final decision will be made about these positions. So Cindy Lovell, our administrator, will be in contact with you. But if you have any other questions of our committee, please let me know. Otherwise, we will be in communication with you in the next few weeks. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. It was nice to meet you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, Daniel, welcome. I'm Paula Schnepp, the current chair of the Appointments Committee. And as you know, we're interviewing for the Youth Commission. And I just had a quick question. You have actually been on the Youth Commission before?
Yeah, I did for my 8th grade year.
Okay, so you're interested in coming back onto the Youth Commission?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, I'll open it up to other counselors for any questions.
All right.
Counselor Mendez.
Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Sophie. I'm not sure if you heard it or not, but what is the biggest complaint you hear from, your peers or the kids around town?
So the biggest complaint I hear is probably in the school I'm in, Barnstable High School. Tons of people hate how the bathrooms is full of kids vaping, smoking, whatever they smoke. And it limits them from using the bathrooms. You can't go in there without there being a cloud of smoke being in there. So that's probably the biggest problem I see.
All right. That's actually a good point. Thank you.
Counselor Atzlis.
Daniel, thank you for being here. Actually, I have my daughter's at Barnstable and she's commented about the vaping going on. I'm interested to know what's your feeling on the procedure that the teachers take when the monitor does go off and everybody has to come out and be handled accordingly.
So about the monitors, when the teachers get it, I know that they get a notification on their phones. I feel they need to be a little bit more quicker because from what I've heard, when the monitors go off, the minute the beepers go off, the kids run out of the bathroom. And then like 10 minutes later, the teacher will arrive and they'll find another kid in the bathroom who was not using any substances. Then that kid will be patted down for no reason. So I think teachers need to immediately go to where the beeping is happening.
And if I may, a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for that. That's a great answer. The other thing, as far as issues you think that the Youth Commission either they're currently focused on, or maybe they should focus on, what are some of the issues that you think they should continue their efforts with, and also maybe anything new?
So I've been talking about a lot of substance abuse. It's one of my favorite topics to help prevent. So they should probably continue going with that. And they should also continue with the One Love. I know they're doing that tomorrow. I'm going to be there. And you guys are going to be there. Yeah, it's mainly those 2 big things, substance abuse and domestic violence.
Thank you.
Counselor Shaughnessy?
Thank you. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for reapplying to be on the Youth Commission. This sort of touches on what Counselor Mendez said, but outside of, issues at school or whatever, do you think as a town, we're doing enough to support our youth in terms of activities, places you can hang out, public transportation, getting around, stuff like that? Do you have any suggestions for us as town councilors and, being the future of the town? What do you see as a freshman in high school as things that the town could improve to improve quality of life for teenagers?
So right now the town is actually doing pretty fine. When I was in Florida before, when the school year started, I moved to Florida. it wasn't very, I don't know how to say, like diverse as here. Like over here, you have the HYCC, you have the buses, there's tons of Ubers and stuff. So there's tons of places for teenagers to go, HYCC and movies. And other places, I haven't seen it like that. So that's one thing that the town does really good. I guess something that you guys could do more is like maybe advertise what you guys do at the HYCC to schools, because I don't really see what happens at the HYCC when I don't go there. I only know what's happening if I go there, which is kind of a big problem if people want to see what's happening there. Like if there's a sport event and they want to go, they're not going to know about it if they never go.
That's a great comment. Thank you, because communication is a huge priority for us. Not just communicating in English, but communicating in more than one language, so that not only parents and kids can know about different things going on in the town, whether it affects youth or not, whether it's about zoning or new development or whatever it might be. So thank you. That's a really good, obviously a missing piece of communication, because you know, I tend to find out, and I'm right around the corner from the HYCC, only because I follow their social media. But if I don't see the one post and I'm not going, I too often don't know, particularly if there's a special program or some sort of competition in town, but just different events that even I would want to participate in. So that's good to know that it's not sort of the upcoming events at the HYCC or deadlines to sign up for certain classes or classes that are being offered is not being widely broadcast throughout our public school system. So thanks for pointing that out. And thank you so much for applying.
Counselor Starr, you good? Or you got a question?
One quick question. So my question, Daniel, is as you're looking forward to your career at the Barnstable High School, is there a certain program or direction or a special program that you'd like to be involved in?
What do you mean by that? Like
the science and tech, or the business program, or
I'm in like music programs. I used to take music programs, orchestra, music tech. That's the stuff I usually do. Okay. That's pretty much as close as it is. I only do my necessary classes to graduate. So yeah.
Okay.
Mainly music.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Daniel, you know that from what I shared with Sophie, that we will be discussing your application at the end of our meeting and making a recommendation to the town council, but it will be several weeks before the whole process goes through. So we welcome your patience as we get through this. Do you have any questions of us?
Not really.
Okay, well, good. Well, thank you for coming back to the Youth Commission, and we will be communicating with you shortly. All right?
All right. Have a good day.
All right. Take care.
Madam Chair, you have Mr. Koshulik here.
All right.
Hold on, the video is starting. They can hear you. Yeah, okay. All right, just gotta fix the camera.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure I don't want to push Mr. Koshulik.
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
That's correct.
Do you go by Jeff or Jeffrey?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, great.
Thank you so
well,
much.
welcome. I'm Paula Schnepp, the current chair of the Appointments Committee, and you have expressed interest in the Conservation Commission. As you may know, that there is not a current vacancy on the commission, but at the end of our fiscal year in June, there are 2 positions up for reappointment, which equate to a vacancy. So we would be interviewing you for those positions that would start in July. Okay, good. So I will open up the floor to the rest of the committee to begin the interview. Counselor Starr.
Hello, Jeffrey. Welcome. My question is about what kind of interests and skills do you bring to the Conservation Commission, or how would you fit in?
Well, I'm a resident in Osterville. I lived on Nantucket for many, many years. I've been full-time in Osterville for 3 or 4 years. I actually live on West Bay in Osterville, right on the water. I have a great appreciation for the environment, and I'm a small real estate guy now. I own 3 years ago, literally the day of COVID, I bought the old Busch Gardens in Osterville, which is now called the Beacon Gardens at Osterville. Okay. And I would like to think a fairly savvy horticulture guy. We have our own native section, of which we're looking to, to add to and grow, down the road. And I have obviously a fine interest and appreciation for the environment, especially the waterways and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Atzlis.
Thank you. Jeff, thanks for being here tonight. And I actually toured Beacon Gardens before it became Beacon Gardens, before you purchased it, when it was in the condition when you purchased it. And it's a pretty amazing effort to get that place cleared out. You had a lot to do there.
No, thank you.
It looks great. So I've mentioned this to other candidates or applicants. And as far as the Conservation Commission having a very heavy workload, they meet at least 3 times a month, plus site visits. Site visits are highly recommended because they're looking at the plan and looking at the site, and because there'll be likely 2 different perspectives. Is that do you have that type of time for that kind of commitment to serve on the commission?
I do. Thank you very much. And you had mentioned, looking at plans and so on. I would say that's the answer is yes, and I have a great appreciation for and knowledge of reading, understanding plans, lay of land, the wetlands, etc. So absolutely.
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
I guess while I have the floor. Thank you, Jeff, for that answer. Also, again, like many of our commissions, conservation isn't any different as far as having an open mind for every application or issue that's in front of the Conservation Commission. I don't know anyone that would actually say no to this question, but I'm asking anyways. Do you consider yourself an open-minded person as it relates to conservation-related issues?
100% yes.
All right, I'll give the floor to somebody else. I may circle back. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Councilor Mendez.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Thank you for being here. With that name, I know you're going to be great. So, anybody who has that name, I really like. This is kind of a boilerplate question for me, but I'd like to ask every candidate who I talk to especially about an important position like this. Right now in town, there's a lot of divisiveness, especially between people who've been here for several generations, like myself, and people who have moved here in the last 20 years or so. So do you have the ability to be open-minded and compromise?
Again, great question. And I just exited my 50s. As I said earlier in my brief intro to Mr. Starr's question, I grew up in Connecticut as a kid. I've been on when I graduated school in the middle 80s, I ended up on Nantucket through a job placement center, and I've been through through many boards, through the planning processes. Not with conservation a ton, but I have been in front of them. And compromise is the only way you can move forward in this. Not just with the conservation, but with just about any matter that you're looking to resolve a matter, issue, etc. So again, my answer is 100%, and I think I'm a communicable guy. I work very well with people, and I've been around boards for a very long time.
Great. Thank you very much for the answer.
You're welcome.
Councilor Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Jeffrey. How are you? I think you present us a rather unique resume. My experience has always been that construction and gardens don't mix, but that could just be based on the fact that I'm from a family of stonemasons, who I do not appreciate having in my yard as a gardener. But I certainly think it's a very interesting perspective. I also like the fact that, coming from Nantucket, Nantucket is, a version of the town of Barnstable, but even on a sort of a more exaggerated level because of even more limited resources than what exists here on the Cape. So I can imagine in your time there as a builder and developer, you've spent a lot of time in front of various town boards on different projects and understand how they work. And I also appreciate, that your letter of interest was actually addressed to the chair committee. And I think you did a great job spelling out some of the different skills that you bring to the board, which, I really appreciate. I think some of the things that have happened at Conservation Commission is, for the haves going there, there's sometimes a sense that, if you've got the money, we're going to make you spend it. And, I think what's more important is that whatever policies are applied or decisions are made, I think it needs to be equity across the board, regardless of means, that, we have to make policies that are consistent rather than, consistent depending on the type of applicant. So I'm assuming in your time on Nantucket, this was something you had to deal with quite a bit, locals who've lived there for multiple generations, versus people coming in and want to level smaller houses to build so-called McMansions. How do you feel? You also noted that you are able to ask tough questions in a respectful way, which is not always easy to do. How do you feel that all those different perspectives can add even more to the Conservation Commission in terms of maybe some continuity, some consistency, those sorts of things?
Great question. Let me give me a second to put this in perspective. In regards to my current occupation, and the occupation is much a passion as it is an occupation, Beacon Gardens at Osterville. It's located, for if anyone doesn't know, it's right between Mahoney's at the intersection of Osterville, West Barnstable Road, Route 28, and Cape Cod Academy. And anyone that has got to know me in the last 3 years knows that it's not just about profit. It's not just about profit. Okay. And I have a great appreciation for, as I said, environment before, but trees also. And I don't know if the chair will be able to, am I correct that Paul is the chair on this?
Just
or
the chair of the committee, but that's
the chair of the committee.
It's a facilitator, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you'll be able to put two and two together, but I was involved in a very small project in Marston's Mills. Last year it was a 6-acre parcel, just under 6 acres of land. And anyways, we ended up it was ended up being subdivided into three 2-acre lots, or two 2-acre lots, and one with a just under 2 acres via variance. But the important thing for bringing this up is that in any piece of property that's new that you're working with, most people, it's all about just saving a buck. And when we surveyed, and it's not just this particular piece of property, but any property, I've never taken, brush cutters or tractors or big front end loaders and just wiped out, thickets of tree lines, and because it's easy to do. We hand pruned, I want to say, without exaggeration, or probably over a half a mile of with 3 to 4 foot wide, so that we kept 99.9% of the trees intact. And I know, I don't mean to deviate right here. This isn't a quote unquote, there weren't any wetlands anywhere near this particular site, but it will hopefully give you the impression that that I'm not just a dollars and cents guy, and that I truly care. That's I don't, as I said, in Nantucket, I've been in front of the Conservation Commission only a few times. I've been only in front of the Conservation Commission once on Cape Cod. So I'm not, I don't want to shoot myself here, but I'm not super knowledgeable not knowledgeable. I'm not super experienced in terms of the back and forth at Concom, but back to Mr. Mendez's questions. I'm a doer and a compromiser, and can read plans and can understand where things sit. So anyways, I know I deviated a little bit, but I just wanted to I wanted to come full circle at you on that right there.
Well, I definitely appreciate you on that front, because I'm a lawyer who wishes I could play in the dirt all day. I was a huge fan. I grew up in Osterville off Tower Hill Road, so big fan of Busch Gardens for a long time. When I read your resume, my thought was, this has to be the old Busch Gardens, and I'm glad you made that investment in it, because it was a great little place, and best place to get fresh corn in the summertime. So I bought a lot of plants from there that are still in my yard. So thanks for taking the interest in that. But I think equally unusual as a builder that you would seek to preserve trees rather than just bulldozing a lot, but also a builder who's equally interested as a passion in horticulture. So I think you definitely bring a unique perspective there. So thank you for applying.
You're welcome. And it's very real, Tracy. It's very real.
I believe you.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? And Jeff, I know exactly what you're talking about, which parcel, and I appreciate that, because recently there's been a parcel on River Road that was not what happened, and we're lucky to have the wetlands protections for some of our our land, but where you don't have it, it's sometimes a surprise to abutters when you see what your neighbors can sometimes do to your properties. But anyway, I just had one question that's sort of to expand on what Councillor Atzler said, that this is a fairly significant commitment of time. There's at least 3 meetings a month, site visits, but also a kind of a continuing opportunity to learn, because there's so many of these regulations, and I just wanted to know if that's something of interest to you, to kind of keep your mind nimble and be a lifelong learner as you if you are on this committee or commission.
Well, the selfishly, the best thing I heard tonight from the board is that there's not an open seat right now today, because the next 75 days, through the end of June are essentially straight out for me. But July 1st is like it's a time to breathe, and the timing couldn't be more better. So, and in terms of learning, I mean, I learn every day. So I very much would appreciate the opportunity to serve the board, and I hear you on the time. Three meetings a month it's one every 10 days and I know there's site visits and so on, but I actually enjoy that. I enjoy looking at different forms of property. So anyways, and thank you.
All right. Do you have any questions of us?
I don't think everyone, the whole appointment board here, there's no commission members on this board, correct?
So yeah, let me explain the process. So there's 5 of us who are all town councilors. We've been appointed to the appointments committee, and we interview candidates for vacancies on our committees, all of our town committees, and then we present a recommendation to the full council. And the full council we have to have 2 meetings generally to have those recommendations reviewed, and then we vote on them. So the full 13-member council votes on all the appointment recommendations that we make.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
Yeah, and because this is involving some other candidates that we will be reviewing, it will probably take several additional meetings before we make our recommendations and get it to the full council. So be patient. While you're doing your 75 days, we'll be doing our work and making our decisions. So, all right.
So I guess just if I could just ask this one question is,
sure.
As much as the question was raised to me about me being, compromising, is the board, the board that I would hopefully be serving with, are they compromising as well? So that's a little bit of humor right there. So,
okay.
Anyways, no worries.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And again, we'll be in touch.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
And Barbara.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring in both so Mr. Hendricks can see the how it works.
Okay, absolutely. All right.
Hello.
Well, welcome, Mr. Hendricks. We are going to be interviewing another candidate for another committee, but then we will circle back. But you are welcome to just observe, and we'll get to you, I hope, in probably 10 minutes or so.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. And where is there you go. Welcome, Ms. Hersey. This is the Appointments Committee. Paula Schnepp, am the current chair of this committee, and we are interviewing you today for a position, a vacancy on the Mid-Cape Cultural Council. We have actually 3 vacancies, one that ends at the end of June of 2023, but we probably will most consider the 2 vacancies for positions expiring 6/2025, unless Cindy tells me that those are still vacant, right? Okay, great. All right. So I got that right, Mid-Cape Cultural Council? All right, great. If you want to unmute, I will ask my fellow councilors if they have any questions for Ms. Hersey. Tracy, Councilor Shaughnessy.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hersey, I wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit about your background and also about your interest in serving on the Mid-Cape Cultural Council.
All right. Well, my background, two pieces that feel appropriate. I have lived and worked in Barnstable since about 1997. And when my boys were little, they went to Hyannis West Elementary School. And so I got very involved in the parent-teacher committee there. They weren't an official PTO, which was just fine with us. But it really gave me a wonderful sense of community and service within our community, and just being there for all of those families, such a wonderful, diverse student body and group of parents that we get to meet and get to know. And then a few years later, I helped with the Barnstable High School sailing team, and just really enjoyed obviously the time there. My own background, I have a Bachelor of Fine Art from Syracuse University, and I've constantly worked in arts over the years, always trying to find ways to bring arts into the school. I did a fun after school cartooning class at Hyannis West for a number of months there, and constantly working on commissions and projects. I do quilting, I do painting and drawing, and all sorts of things. I just love being involved in anything, getting my hands dirty. I was a principal character at Chatham Drama Guild's Nonsense in 2010. That was amazing, and I absolutely loved being a part of a 5-woman cast there. So just obviously always looking for new ways, interesting things to be involved with. Feel that my service, my time, my understanding of the arts is hopefully going to be helpful on Mid-Cape Cultural Council. There were a few folks there who had asked me to come and sit in on a few meetings and see if it might be something that I could help with, and I feel that I can. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at with my background and whatnot.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Starr.
Oh, good afternoon, Barbara. I'm just basically a comment. I'm very impressed that you've been to a couple meetings and have a sense of what the council does, and you sort of see where you can fit in and encourage other artists. So just going to the meetings and learning about how it works is just it's good initiative from my point of view. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions from our members? Okay. I'll just ask a real quick question, Barbara. You've been to a couple of these meetings. What have you found to be some of the more important things that the Mid-Cape Cultural Council does, and how do you think you would like to contribute?
Well, I understand that a large part of what they do is help to encourage the applicants who are looking for grants. Mm-hmm. And that is really a large part of what they do. I think that they're also trying to branch out and sort of have a way to touch base periodically with the other cultural councils on the Cape that are all doing just amazing things, supporting the arts in a vast variety of ways, and looking to have a place to kind of share ideas, commiserate, all of that good stuff. So those two pieces have stood out for me lately, and that's kind of where they're at, since they're on the down slope of their grant cycle, and then they'll be kicking it up again sort of after the summer, I believe. So but it's fairly mellow right now as far as busyness goes. So got to sort of see the backside of the business. There's quite a bit of the treasurer's role is important, so.
All right. Any other questions of Barbara? If not, do you have any questions of us?
No, just is there a process to informing, applicants and all of that?
Absolutely. So I'd like to just confirm that you would be interested in one of the vacancies that the term is through 6/20/25. That'd be a 2-year. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So after the interview process today, 4 vacancies that are currently open, our committee will be making recommendations that will go to our town council, our full council. There's usually 2 reads. Our first meeting is April 27th, and then the next meeting is May 4th. So the process will kind of move along there, so that the earliest that you would be informed that you have been accepted onto the Mid-Cape Cultural Center would be early May.
Okay.
All right.
Fabulous.
And Cindy will inform you if we make any recommendations out of tonight's meeting. So you'll get a little bit more information more quickly, but the whole process takes a little bit longer than that. So.
Great.
All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in, and we will be in touch.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And sliding right over to Mr. Hendricks, welcome. You're here today for a vacancy on our Shellfish Committee. And I believe we have 2 vacancies. One is a member with a term expiring 6/20/24, which is currently labeled professional fisheries, but that's a bit of a nebulous term. The other vacancy is 6/20/25. And Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a position of a family membership, right? Or a member that is a family. So I think from your background, you would fit more appropriately in the vacancy that is for 6/20/24. And so we will ask you questions accordingly. So I see Mr. Councilor Mendez. Would you like to begin the questions?
Sure. Hi, Paul. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I see you definitely have the experience. You definitely have the knowledge. So I don't have to ask you really any questions. I just want to make a comment. I think that it's very important to get a native on a committee like this, especially because of some of the trouble we have with the native community. I think it can be not only serving the committee, but be a liaison to the tribe. It will save us some litigation and misunderstandings. So I think it's very important to have that segue into, going into a different direction as far as this goes. And like I said, I think it will save us a lot of aggravation in the long run, especially with misunderstandings that happen, especially with the people get to it, so on and so forth, with parking and all that. So I think that it's very important to have somebody with Paul's background and experience, most importantly, experience. Him being a native just happens to be a bonus. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Councilor Atzlis.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for being here tonight or this afternoon, almost night. Are there any, based on your experience in, as a shell fisherman, do you see any issues that you think need to be addressed by this committee? Any hot button issues, concerns that you have, and things that you, based on your background, that you want to address?
Basically, I would, like to see what they think about as far as the shoreline around from the north side to the south side. Back when I was a kid, you could get steamers everywhere. Now you can't do it because the bottom is so dirty from probably more of the people fertilizing, the septic systems, which I believe the town's been working on now, which should help that once they start getting more of that stuff pumped out into a septic place. That's first and foremost, is keeping the water clean.
Mm-hmm. Follow up?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Paul. Also, have you had the opportunity to attend or view any of the Shellfish Committee meetings?
Yes.
And how do you feel do you feel they're productive? Do you feel like there's any improvement that's needed as far as the committee is concerned in doing their job?
Yeah, I think they're doing some productive stuff, but I know people on both sides, so I think I could be more of a middleman to help maybe be a little more productive in some of the things they need to work on, like producing. Like there's always been an issue with how cohogs are produced for the town, you know, in the rec areas as far as the commercial areas, which I grow cohogs out in my grant, so I have definitely developed different types of ways to be productive growing those, which I'd like to help the town with and dispersing them and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, then your answer actually answered the question I was going to ask about your diversity in your background, your ability to be, as you quote you, a middleman. So thank you for your answers and your time.
Yep, no problem.
Great. Councilor Mendez.
Hey, Paul, just a quick question, kind of a follow-up to what Councilor Hassler said. Do you see the main problem as, is it a seeding problem or is it a pollution problem?
A little bit of both. The pollution problem, like when the guys drag for cohogs, is actual, what they call a sponge that just covers the entire bottom, which chokes out everything on the bottom. And then what they've been trying to do is do a little, what they call dragging, when they take a metal drag, get the cohogs, and they're actually trying to remove some of the sponge and all the sediment at the bottom, which is just going down and just killing everything at the bottom. So there's been a debate on whether they should allow to take the sponge out and have the town trash it, or they want to throw them back in, which I don't believe that throwing them back in is doing us any good, because it's an organism that just keeps growing, it gets bigger and bigger. So that's one thing they've been fighting back and forth with some of the fishermen and some of the people on the council. I believe it should be taken out. They should allow us to take it out and help clean the bottom. And where they have been dragging, some of the people that I know have been actually go back looking, and they say it's clean. They're seeing a lot more seed, cohog seed, and all the stuff on the ground, which normally wouldn't grow because it just kills everything. It covers it. There's no oxygen. All the cohogs and stuff have to be at a certain height underneath the surface to feed. If it gets too deep and they can't get up, they just die.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Councilor Shaughnessy, you're good?
No,
oh, okay.
I mean, I can always make a comment. First of all, Councilor Mendez has raised with several candidates tonight whether or not they're familiar with sort of native fishing rights, native access to the water. And I think most have not been familiar. I can honestly say I'm only familiar because of a documentary I watched in the last year, talking about the Wampanoag tribe and those rights. So I was very excited to see on our agenda a Hendricks, a well-known name if you grew up on Cape Cod, actually applying to be on the Shellfish Commission. I think it's important. I think it's wonderful that Amy reached out to you and asked you to please apply. I think it's needed, and I think I appreciated what you had to say with getting along with the other commercial fishermen, having a good ability to talk to people, but also to educate people about these things. So I just really appreciate you applying. I know, what you do for work. It's hard work. It takes a lot of your energy. I'm sure you are very tired 7 days a week, but I think it's really important and vital that you step up and that, you are applying to be one of these town committees, because I as a member of the Wampanoag tribe, I think it's important for you to stand for those rights and for your community. So thank you is really what I wanted to say to you.
All right, thank you.
Great. Any more questions from committee members?
Well,
Councilor Starr.
I would just ask Paul, do you use Scudder Lane?
Yes, I do. Not as much anymore. I used to a lot, but I get another boat that I go out of Blish. But anybody that goes out of Scudder's probably seen me down there for years, the black pickup truck going and down there.
Okay. With a little aluminum boat?
No, that's
That's
another guy. No, but
okay.
The last 2 years, I haven't gone down there that much because my other truck had just basically destroyed my other truck, scuttling and stuff.
Oh.
All the salt water, drive down there every day.
Yep. Yep. And Blish Point is closed. Did it get closed this week?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, I know it's in the works, but there's actually another ramp over there by Midway we use.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think Paul would be a great fit. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Great. All right, and I had a chance to have just a brief conversation with the liaison, our council liaison of the Shellfish Committee, and he also emphasized that's Councilor Paul Cusack, and he also emphasized that need for that balance. And again, you know, between our recreational and our commercial, and it seems like the grant that you are cultivating, you know, fits right in the middle there. So it seems like you would be a really great addition to our Shellfish Committee. So
thank you.
Do you have any questions of us before I kind of briefly went over our process with Ms. Hersey, but just wanted to know if you had any questions of the committee.
Now, the position that you're saying I would fit best for, is that Tyler Hagenstein's old position? Do you know? Because he told me he was done with his position.
You know, on our committee, I'd have to ask Cynthia, because we have 2 vacancies, and I think we have a Taylor and a Tyler, didn't we?
It is Tyler's position.
It's Tyler's position?
Vacated.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So there is another position open, actually.
Yes.
It sounds like
I don't know who filled that position previously, but
yeah, there are 2 vacancies. One is a member holding a family permit, and the other one is considered a professional fisheries trained. And that's where, like Madam Chair said, where there was some gray area with what that actually means.
So, and you don't have a family permit, right? So that would, yeah, right.
I have a grant.
Okay, you have a grant, right? So it would be at least through 2024, and then that position would be up for reappointment. So,
okay,
all right. And as I mentioned earlier, since it is a current vacancy, we will most likely be making a recommendation at tonight's meeting that will then go to the council, the full council, and that takes usually 2 meetings before we have the final decision and you can jump on board officially.
Excellent.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming out, and sounds like you would be a great fit. So
all right,
thank
thanks.
you. All right, take care.
Bye.
All right. So are there any more candidates? We had one other person on our agenda, but I don't know if Ms. Sampu, did she ever show up or?
No, Madam Chair, and I will reach out and reschedule her along with Mr. Powers if he chooses to resubmit his application.
All right, great. So before we jump into any decision making this evening, I wanted to, President Levesque, did you have any public comment that you wanted, or are you just in an observation mode?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just here in an observation mode at this point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm just tuning in. I hadn't reviewed any of the meeting up to this point, so nothing.
All right. Thank you. All right. So this is kind of our busy season for the appointments committee. And we have, as I mentioned, some additional candidates for the planning board and the conservation commission that are coming up. And I would entertain that the appointments committee, in addition to our regularly scheduled meeting in May, which I believe is May 9th, that we could schedule a meeting on April 25th, which is in 2 weeks, a limited meeting to interview the other planning board candidates and conservation commission. And again, if they're not available, that leads us to May 9th, because I want to leave May 9th because we're going to have to be dealing with all the reappointments for the other committees. Do committee members have that availability and interest in doing so?
Yes.
Councilor Mendez, is that a yes? Okay.
No.
Oh, is that a question?
No, I have a question. So
Yes.
we have a candidate tonight
Yes.
more than qualified. So you trying to delay that?
Well, we have received other candidates since we made public that the vacancy on the planning board that were not able to make this particular agenda because it was posted last week.
But we do have reappointments coming up so they can interview at that time. We have a candidate that's immensely qualified. So I don't understand why we would wait.
It is the committee can make that decision. Councilor Atzles.
And I'm along those lines. I'm just concerned about quorum issues with the planning board. There's a vacancy there, so it is something that needs to be filled. I believe that's been open since the beginning of April 1st. And I guess when the new candidates that applied, or when did that occur?
One was the 9th of April, and the second one was the 10th of April.
Okay. So is it out of order, if I will, if we voted on a candidate tonight to fill the open spot, and then the other candidates for the potential reappointments that may come up? Just a question.
It's a question up for discussion. Councilor Starr?
I thought people could apply till the end of the month.
We gave that impression. Yes.
And we have, I mean, it's been open for 11 days.
Right.
Right. I just said that. I said April 1st. I'm able to count. Right. Thanks.
So within the last 11 days, 3 people have applied. So I think we should wait and interview the other 2 people.
Councilor Shaughnessy?
I just want to clarify, Mr. Teague being on our agenda, Cindy, is that a process of calling people that have applied in the last 3 years to see who wants to be in still? Is that guessing how he came to be on the agenda? Was through calling people that had applied previously?
He had sent an email directly to me prior to this meeting being posted that he was still interested in applying. He did not resubmit his application. He resubmitted an email asking to be reconsidered for the open vacancy on the planning board. So I pulled his application from 2 years ago and attached his current email to it and put him on the agenda.
Okay, no, but just clarifying, he's one of those people that has applied before and gotcha.
Yes, he has applied in the past and was interviewed by the previous appointments committee.
In terms of Mr. Costello's resignation becoming public, or that position being vacant, that would not have been available to the public until, I'm assuming, April 1, when his resignation was posted?
Correct. His resignation specifically set a date on it when he would no longer be available for the planning board, which was April 1st.
Okay.
And Cindy, I don't know how all these dates, we made an announcement at our town council meeting on April 6th. The e-newsletter had a notice of vacancies on April 7th. The website was updated when?
Yep. It was in the e-news letter that Lynn Poyant puts out on April 1st. It's been on the website, I want to say since the April 2nd, because when I removed his name on April 1st, it takes 24 hours to update the website. So the vacancy would not have appeared until the 2nd of April.
Right. I did have a chance to talk with the current chair of the planning board today. That's Steve Robichaud. And he did indicate that he had a communication with his board I think they met yesterday, and that they were all in agreement that they would, that their quorum is 4, and they have 6 seated members, and that they would all make that commitment to make meetings so that quorum wouldn't be an issue. It appears that the 3 current members that are up for reappointment have or are planning to express interest in continuing to serve on the planning board. So I think, given the history and the significant interest in the planning board, I would feel that it's important that we give everyone ample time to apply for these positions. And I don't disagree that we interviewed a candidate that was highly qualified. But if we have a chance to meet in 2 weeks, I don't think we are significantly delaying the process, since this vacancy only occurred less than 2 weeks ago. So, but I will take a motion if somebody wants to move, whether we move to make a decision tonight or we continue the conversation and schedule another meeting. We also have the Conservation Commission positions to interview. Councilor Atsoulis?
And so just for my own clarification, so when is would our next meeting be? If we're gonna, are we adding a meeting?
I would recommend adding a meeting on the 25th. That's in 2 weeks.
Do you need a motion to do that? To vote on? Do we need
I would like a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion that we have another meeting on April 25th at 4 o'clock.
Second. I'll second that.
Madam Chair?
Just a second. We have a first and a second.
Madam Chair?
Discussion?
Madam Chair?
Any discussion? Councilor Mendez?
Yes. Can you hold on a second, please? I might be out of town on the 25th.
You're going to be out of town on the 25th?
I may be. Just a second.
Oh, you just muted.
Double checking.
Oh, did we lose him?
No,
I think he's just trying to confirm his schedule.
Okay. Oh, he's confirmed. Okay. It wouldn't have to be a Tuesday, but just because it's the regular meeting time that we have.
I'm all set. I'll be here.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Because we're in Zoom land, we have to do a roll call, Madam Chair.
Okay, please proceed.
Councilors Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Atsoulis.
Yes.
And Chair of Committee, Councilor Schnapp.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay. So we will invite the 2 individuals for the Concom. They have a meeting that night, but if we can schedule them early, I think they will be available. And I would like to recommend that the other candidates for planning board be on that agenda, so we can keep that moving along. I'd rather not add anybody else to that agenda, that just be the Concom and the planning board, and then leave any other interviews for our May 9th meeting. Is that okay? Unless I'll work with Cindy if it appears that we need to move somebody onto that 25th agenda. Okay. Let's see. I'd like to quickly go through some other matters. We have a resignation to accept from the planning board, Steve Costello. Anybody want to move to accept that resignation?
I move to accept the resignation of Stephen Costello.
A second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Cindy, a roll call vote, please.
Councilor Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Atsoulis.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Chair of Committee, Paula Schnapp.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right. We do have, what, 4 positions that we could vote on tonight. Do I have any motions for that? Counselor Shaughnessy?
I'd like to move Daniel Gomes and Sophia Manchik to the Youth Commission, to both to terms expiring 6/2024.
Second, anyone?
Second.
We got a second, a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Cindy, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Atsalas,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
unanimous.
All right. We have opening on the Mid-Cape Cultural Council. Any nominations?
I make a motion to nominate Barbara Hersey for the Mid-Cape Cultural Council to a term, I don't know, ending June 2023. I mean,
I would go with the 25.
The 25. Okay, let's skip that one. Okay.
All right,
Thank
got it. Motion, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Mendez,
Yes.
Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Atsalas,
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, we have one more position that we can fill tonight, the Shellfish Committee. Counselor Shaughnessy.
I'd like to move Paul Hendricks Jr. to a member of the Shellfish Committee, the professional term, which expires 6/2024.
Second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Atsalas,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay. We have one more item of business. Cindy did forward the meeting minutes from March 14th. If I can get a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
First, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Atsalas,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Good work, everyone. That's a long meeting. Counselor Shaughnessy?
Thank you, Councilor Schnapp. So to clarify, so that we're all on the same page, are we going to table discussion of Concom and Planning Board for our May meeting? Assuming at that point, we will have interviewed any and all potential candidates, including our intention would be to interview the folks up for reappointment in the May meeting?
I would entertain that motion.
Well, no, we beat May is when we'd actually.
You want them interviewed on the April 25th meeting, the extra meeting that you're having, correct?
Right, well, but then we'll have reappointments to interview as well as new applicants, right? Did we decide we're going to put them in May?
Yes.
You know, I back the chair in our earlier comments. I think as a committee, it's better to discuss them all in their entirety after we've interviewed the pool of candidates and we know who they are. I just think it'll make for a more holistic discussion to discuss all the applicants and sort of the pros and cons of each at the same time, which I think was sort of your feeling, Chair Schnapp. And I think it makes the most sense to wait until we have interviewed all the prospective applicants before we begin our discussion of who should be appointed or who we should nominate to be appointed. That's all.
I agree with that approach. You know, we could have delayed all of these interviews to May 9th, but I think that's just too many to to do in one evening. So I think that we're kind of splitting it, but deferring, or we'll probably have to continue our discussion to the May 9th at the April 25th meeting. But that would be my intention. Is that everyone's okay? We're good. All right. I would seek a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Nobody wants.
I've got a first. Second.
Hey.
All right, let's go for the roll call.
Counselor Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Mendez.
Yes.
Oh, Atsalas.
Yes.
Schnapp.
Yes.
It's unanimous. You are adjourned at 6:15 p.m.
All right, and thank you, Cindy, for all the work that you put in to get us ready for this meeting. All right.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Good night.